Hi, everyone. Welcome to Art Tip. Today, we're here with Saira Umar. She is a creative director and writers group lead at Asians in Animation, and also the creative producer and director of the Animatic pilot Tea Leaves Last, their very recent project. So, welcome, Saira.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, so today we're going to touch on a few topics, including Asians in Animation, the program, and also your new pilot project. And we also know that you're currently working in production at various studios in animation. So we also want to touch on your journey in animation as a writer. As To start off with, Asians in Animation. It sounds like a really cool program. I looked at the website. How would you introduce AIA to some Asian students who might not know about it?
So, Asians in Animations is a nonprofit organization. You can kind of think of it like a club for grown-ups, or like, you can join when you're a student, but it continues throughout, hopefully, your whole professional career. It's just a place for, like-minded people who want to help support Asian voices in animation. It's for people who work in the industry, people who are fans of animation. Yeah, I guess that's kind of a basic summary.
Mhm. What was your journey like to AIA, and how has it been so far for you?
Yeah. So Asians Animation started their Instagram account in 2021. So that's when I found out about them. I saw just as a recommended Instagram page to follow was like this little chick, and it was like Asians and Animation's coming soon. So I clicked follow. And then they started posting. They started like saying, "Oh, we have a Discord server. You can join." So I was like, "All right, I'll join," because I was looking for work in animation and just wanted to find more people, make friends, make community. So yeah, then I signed up. They were looking for volunteers as well, so I signed up for volunteering. And I was like, I'll do whatever. Like, I just want experience. I want to get to know people. So signed up to volunteer and quickly got moved up the ranks. So I was creative director for a while, and then I moved up to creative chair. So that's what I was doing for the past like 2 or 3 years until last fall when we started doing production programs. And that's when I started working on 4P, which is the pre pilot pre production program.
Very cool. Has it directly helped you in navigating the animation industry by having your experiences in AIE?
A lot of my early interviews were kind of indirectly or directly from AIA or from referrals from people within AIA. And the first job that I got, which was on Gentry Child versus the Underworld, I had met the recruiter for Titmouse through AIA's writers group, and she posted the job in there. So I think that definitely helped me. And of course, I met a bunch of people that, I still work with now in AIA, but like we're all moving up in the industry together. So we're forming a community.
That's awesome because I also saw that AIA has a lot of program mentors, and then they're all very amazing people who have industry experience. So I'm guessing that's really going to help you to connect with people who work in the industry.
Yeah, that's definitely a newer thing that's specifically for the Immersive Lab production
Mm.
program. So that's the initiative they started last year, which is making 2D shorts. So that program has mentors, and then future production programs will have mentors. 4P was a little bit special. We did not have mentors. We kind of integrated industry experience in a different way. But yeah, we're hoping to make sure we're connecting, experienced people with less experienced people.
That's super cool. So we're interested in AIA. What's the first step? What would you recommend people to do, like to get involved, to take the first step?
I mean, I think the easiest thing is, follow social medias. And then the next step would be, joining the Discord, going to the website, signing up for the newsletter, filling out the membership form. That's kind of the extent of the formal membership process right now. They're currently working on, you know, other steps and what it means to be a member and that stuff. So that's coming down the future. But for now, just being a part of the Discord and the community, if you see programs come up that you want to apply to those, go to events. But like it's kind of what you want it to be. So like I started and I wanted to make a writers group. So I just pitched like, hey, can AIA do a writers group? And then they're like, sure, go for it. So I made that, community and made that program. And likewise, someone else had an interest in doing like a portfolio art work session. They call it pause, like group where they meet once a week or month and do the same thing. So yeah, it's kind of a space you can just find people that have the same ideas as you.
It seems like it's a really easy process to get to know the community and then to apply to the opportunities when you see those that aligns with your interests. That's really cool. we want to talk about Tea Leaves Last, which is the pilot that you led to produce. It's a 44-minute pilot, quite a massive workload, and I watched it, and it's really cool. How would you pitch Tea Leaves Last as a pilot?
Yeah. I would pitch it as, young girl leaves her home to go to the big city, in search of reviving ancient magic. And then along the way, she, makes allies, meets friends, and discovers that there's a impending colonial force threatening to destroy everything she loves. Get mad about that.
It's a really long story, so I'm guessing that even in the writing process, it was quite difficult to like just create something cohesive with. Also, you led like many writers, so it wasn't like one person who created it. It's like the group of writers, and then you and another story editor together. Did you guys start from specific characters or from culture? Because we have a lot of characters, and then we also have a lot of cultures. I was wondering what came first, or did I kind of just mix together?
So it helped that the group of writers were all people from the writers group. So what we called this like kind of like it was an experimental project that we knew we kind of wanted to work with like a lot of people we already knew and then also new people. So for the writers group specifically, I already had a lot of writers that I knew, so I already was familiar with their style. So I kind of was like, I want to do a new idea when it came to this program. So I gave them a list of like wish list things that I'm interested in, like telling a story about. Magic was on there, like Regency, historical periods, colonialism. Those are like themes that I always like to tell stories about. So the story editor and my co-writer Stephanie, she pitched an idea that was like Bridgerton meets Sailor Moon. It was a little bit for a younger audience. It was like, oh, like so and so like breaks her antique like tea set and then she has to find a new one and the one she finds is magical and then all of her and her friends at their tea party get magic powers. Very cute idea. Everyone was drawn to the idea of like magic based tea powers. I wanted to age it up a little bit. So we like took the idea of tea magic powers and then we were kind of like, all right, if we're doing like magical girl show or like magical person show, I usually have like an ensemble. So we were like, okay, how many characters do we have? I was like looking into like different types of tea. There's 7 main types of tea. So it's like, okay, it's gonna be a team of 7. We kind of like matched then like cultures to types of tea. So it was like easier for some than others. Like matcha was like green tea, and that was like Japan. Like that was an easy one. And I also went off my own cultural heritage. So I'm Chinese, Burmese, and Pakistani. So that was kind of the 3 main cultures of our 3 main girls for the pilot. So I felt like I could authentically speak to those.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of very specific and interesting elements in the animatic that you kind of wove in with like different genres like fantasy, like young adult kind of little group of girls who go on this kind of adventure. So that was really cool. To kind of circle back to the writers group that a lot of the writers came from, were those writers people who had experience writing beforehand, or were they just interested in storytelling and then they got into the program and then kind of developed like a group of peers to help each other grow in that area?
Yeah, I started the writers group in November of 2021. And so basically I just put out an open call through AIA, be like anyone interested in writing. So I got a bunch of like basically 20 strangers all said that they were interested. So I just like was like, sure, whoever wants to join can join. And then, over the course of many months, some people left and then new people were interested. And then we started like making a little more strict with our interview process because then we had started like to form a rapport and form like a group of friends. So we want to make sure that like, everyone gets along, is on the same page. And also at the beginning we did a lot of training and like had guests come in and speak to us and we did like script writing 101. So everyone kind of had the like beginner level writing stuff and everyone came in with like different levels of experience. But everyone was still pretty early on in their career. And then through the past like 4 years, a lot of us have gotten like our first jobs in the industry or have moved up. Like one of our people in our writing group got like a staff writing position on a Disney show. Actually, 2 of them did. But yeah, and so like people have started to get their first scripts and get more writing experience, but we all like help each other and write our own personal scripts and then get feedback. So we're all kind of like, yeah, growing together.
That's awesome because it's kind of hard to learn writing, and it almost feels like you just need the group of people who are focused on that goal and who can like give each other feedback. So that's an amazing idea. I wish we had something like that too. Were there some recurring writing challenges that your team kind of faced? Like maybe it was exposition or just, oh, it's so many characters. How do I like explain their backstory? were there some recurring writing challenges that your team faced while writing Team Meet Last? Maybe it was with exposition or just dealing with so many characters and how to explain like their journey, their need, or did you guys face any recurring writing challenges and how did you guys solve that?
Yeah, I think we knew we wanted to limit it to like 3 main characters, even though we knew it was like an ensemble show, but for a pilot, we wanted to limit it, so that helped. But of course, we always ran into like the scope issue. It was initially supposed to be a 22-minute episode, and then when we wrote our script, it was kind of more like 35 pages, so we had a feeling it was gonna go longer. Ended up being like 44 minutes. No, it was always like an issue to try to rein it back. And, we were trying to do a lot in a short amount of time and really pack stuff in there. And, it's very hard, I think, with a YA fantasy type of story to do all that, like set up all these characters and the magic system and also cultures. So yeah, that was a struggle. And then of course, like it was all of our first times really being in a writer's room as writers. Like some of us had sat in on writers' rooms before, but not actually participated in it. And of course, my first time running a writer's room, so challenging to just balance all the different voices and, like having to turn down certain ideas. Not that they were bad, but just be like, oh, like we can't do every single idea. And like trying to choose which ones are best. And then, yeah, there was also things with like the magic system. I'm just trying to make sure it was really clear, make sure that all the information that we needed to drop was dropped in the right spot and that like the audience wouldn't be confused, which is possible because it was kind of a more in-depth like story. It wasn't very like it's not just our world.
Yeah, totally. I'm wondering if, for just hypothetically, if you got like a new pilot to work on and a new story to work on, would you have done anything like differently because you learned something from working on this pilot story?
Definitely. I think there's a lot that I would do differently. I mean, I I wouldn't necessarily go back and change tea because it was a learning experience, but moving forward, I mean, obviously, like, we were all volunteers, so would love to be paid to do this in the um, and then, like, kind of, evaluating the scope and, like, I think this was a very ambitious project to do for what we had originally planned it to be, which was, like, the 22-minute, so that's what we were operating on, and we kind of, like, went over it, and we were like, "It's fine." It ended up being fine, but, in the future, would wanna keep it to that, like, smaller scope project.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you did lead like a crew of over 100 people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then over like 8 months, so that's a long time.
Yeah.
What were some major challenges in like the production side of this animatic?
Yeah, it was definitely a marathon, and that was part of the challenging part. It was a lot of work. It was basically like I would just wake up in the morning and work on the project like every spare hour that I wasn't working on my actual job. Like I had to be working on tea from like, morning until like 2 a.m. the next day because also we had international people. So I was basically like I felt like a lot of responsibility to get back to people, like because we told the artists to limit their hours to like 20 hours a week. But if their 20 hours are overnight, then I don't want to like hold them up by not responding. I want to make sure I get them their answers so then they can work on it within their hours. But for me as the leader, then that made like a lot of the burden fall on me. So that was challenging. Of course, it's challenging to be like remote and also like working with all volunteers, all working separate hours. It's hard to like get everyone on the same page, and we have to also train people while they're doing the thing, so I would have definitely wanted to have more training time in there, but we did have, like, a hard deadline of April because, I got married at that time, so I wanted to be done by then. So, in the future, I definitely would not wanna have a major life event happening at the same time, so we could be a little more flexible with the deadline.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I forgot to think about how it's international students working remotely, so the hours are probably really hard to coordinate. If you wanted to have like a meeting set up, that wouldn't even be difficult. So
Yeah.
that's an amazing feat. So congrats on finishing the pilot, honestly. I wanted to ask what you feel like is the significance of making an animatic pilot, because like for example, if there's animation students, there's a variety of projects they can work on personally, right? Would you recommend students, artists to take their free time and make something like a quite long pilot,
Mhm.
animatic pilot to be able to like tell their stories?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, I think a lot of schools, from what I've seen, mostly focus on the feature side of animation or they focus on making short films. But I think there's so much value in learning TV. And because that is, half the industry or more, like that is where a majority of the jobs are in the West, especially entry level jobs. Like it's much easier access than feature studios can be. So it's really important that people get exposure to how the TV pipeline works and the pre-production side because that is mostly the Western studios. I mean, if they're wanting to work in the US, learning about like that first half, basically. And let me see. I think, in general, it is valuable to just do projects and like put stuff into practice because you don't really get it until you do it. We had a lot of artists like who, they storyboarded before, they storyboarded on shorts before, but they didn't really understand like how to pace themselves and like how to set themselves up for success later because like they just hadn't done something like this before where they're working with a team. Like even when you're working on your own project, it's almost easier than working in a team because you're just, in control of your hours and everything and you know exactly what you want. But working with other people, you have to like really communicate, make sure everyone's on the same page, constantly wrangle people, like make sure they're turning things in on time. So that's really invaluable experience to get. But of course it's tough to get people together to do a project like this, especially making sure that they do it right because it's like you don't know what you don't know. Sometimes it's like if you and a bunch of your friends want to do something, but none of you have ever done it before, you're kind of like having to invent the wheel and you're like, don't even know what mistakes to avoid or shortcuts you can take. So it's like you kind of need like a mentor or somebody guiding you to be like, hey, there's an easier way to do this.
Yeah, totally. I wanted to ask for this animatic pilot program, did it kind of simulate the way TV pre-production would work?
Yeah, it was pretty much a one-to-one of how TV works. Basically myself and the producer, as well as a couple of other people in the leadership, all work, professionally in the industry. So we basically took the schedule that we've used on real productions and we just copy pasted it. And we adapted it a little bit because we knew people were going to be working only 20 hours a week. So we hired double the amount of people. But we kind of try to keep the pace of like, you usually get 2 weeks for like rough storyboards, 2 to 3, maybe 4 weeks for storyboard cleans. You get usually 3 weeks to do designs. So we kind of like made sure it was pretty accurate to how shows are made in the West and the standards and everything. We try to make it really like industry standard and expected everyone to act like it was like a real job, while also, making sure that everyone had a positive, healthy experience. They weren't working over their 20 hours because, again, it was like all volunteer.
So it was a lot of kind of the same pace as it would be in an actual TV production. That is really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, because kind of timing wise, is something that you don't really get to practice and maybe in some school environments, at least in my school, we just make short films and we don't really do too much collaboration beyond 48 hours. That's like very short time. So yeah, that's a really cool concept of using this program to like simulate actual TV production. We want to kind of change gears and talk about your experience working animation. You have some really cool experiences. I want to start with writing because you also got involved in different writing programs like Disney TV, Writer's Guild Foundation, PBS Children's Screenwriting. They're just like really cool, and I didn't really know about these beforehand. But how did you like build a writing portfolio that led to these very real opportunities?
Yeah. So I went to school for studio art, but I always liked writing. And so I saw there was a class for screenwriting at my school. So I was like, okay, let me just take this class. And I'd been working on like a novel since like high school. I did like NaNoWriMo, which is like November writing month. So like that, I was like, I have this story. So I've always loved writing, but I mostly wrote like prose. And so then I was like, oh, this would be so cool as a movie. And I also come from like a theater background. So I always picture stories like up in action while I write them. So I was like, oh, it'd be cool to like do like a movie adaptation or like a stage adaptation. So I took this screenwriting class and that kind of like got me like, okay, I really like screenwriting. I can do this. So then a couple of years later, maybe like a year later, I saw there was the Universal Animation Writing Program open up. And so they wanted, a spec script and an original script So I was like, all right, I have an idea for original. So I just like, wrote it. And then I learned about what scripts are and wrote that and happened to then place as a semifinalist for that first time. And so then that was really validating. And that actually, like, through convoluted means, got me my first interview in the industry for like a PA job. So then I was like, okay, let me pursue the PA job or like production path while also pursuing writing path at the same time and just see like, what happens. Cause, this industry, you have to really like take every chance you can get and every opportunity. So I was like, let me just apply for everything possible, try really hard to just break in anyway. But yeah, so I just kept writing and I used the fellowships as kind of like motivation and deadlines of like, okay, you have, every year these fellowships come up and they want 2 new scripts every year. So that's just like got me really like writing every year. Like you have to do it for this deadline because I didn't know how else to break in. Like I was doing the production route and trying to break in that way. But I was like, if I can break in the writing way, because that's my like ultimate goal, then why not go that way too? So I was like, okay, you just have to have to write. So yeah, just kept writing scripts and um, eventually got into some programs like the PBS writing program and Writers Guild support staff program. But yeah, still trying to move into writing more in the future.
That's amazing because, oh, I'm gonna say this. In high school, I always wrote a fantasy novel. I never showed it to anyone. But it's real hard to like go from that to, okay, I'm gonna write scripts and I'm gonna apply to these programs. So before you kind of did say that you built your portfolio kind of by applying to these programs. Before that, like how much experience did you have with writing? So you did have like a few personal scripts, I'm guessing?
My first 2 scripts were the ones for that Universal program that like I got semifinalists on. But before that, I had like written that one screenplay, which was like the adaptation of my
Mm,
novel for that.
yeah.
So like that was basically my only experience. But I did a lot of like reading other people's scripts. I did a lot of like panels and like took classes and just try to like learn as much as possible. And I, like talked to writers in the industry and showrunners. So I like really learned a lot from them and like from yeah, just absorbing information. And then I think, as I've written more scripts, then that also you learn by doing. So it's a
Mhm.
combination. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. What were like the length of scripts usually? Are you doing feature screenplays or?
No, normally I do 30-minute or like, yeah, half an hour.
Mhm.
So that's more of what animation is. Animation is almost always 11-minute or 22 minutes. So,
Mhm. So it's like kind of like TV episode script. Gotcha, gotcha. Do you have favorite writers?
um, I don't know. I mean, for screenwriting, I think it's harder to say because they, especially in animation, they don't get as much glory as they should. I think. Well, I mean, even live.
Or like shows, I guess.
Um, that's tough. I think for like animation, some of the shows that really made me want to pursue it as a path was like Tangled the series, and also like other older leaning stuff like Dragon Prince and like Avatar. It's like anything that has a little bit of an older age range. That was like more inspiring because I really like stuff that has like story. Like comedy is fun and all that, but I really like stuff that has like extended storylines, and like themes and stuff like that.
Hmm. Are you often inspired by live action writing or more just animation?
Sometimes I do like watching a lot of live action TV as well. I think it's definitely evolved a lot over time. I think in like middle school and high school when I would watch like a lot of TV because I had the time. There's a lot of like procedurals and stuff, and then streaming started happening, and so now there's a lot more like limited series. So it's the type of storytelling is a lot different now. It's like more about being bingeable versus being something that you can make 40 episodes of a year.
Mhm.
Um, so yes and no. I think there's certain types of series, like I said, ones that are more uh long stories versus like sitcoms or like procedurals that I get inspired by.
Yeah, totally. Um, what advice do you have for someone in animation who wants to become a screenwriter, or maybe someone who kind of got into this animation industry thinking, I love animation, but I also really, really, really love story. Like, what advice do you have for them?
I think reflecting on what what your end goal is and what's your really like why. Because I think for me, I was also a little bit like unsure of what to pursue when I started. That's why like, I came from the theater background and writing, and then I switched to being an art major. So I got a degree in studio art. Because I was kind of under the impression and told like, oh, if you want to work at animation, you have to draw. Or like even if you want to be a story person, you have to like storyboard. So I was like, okay, I need to get better at drawing. Only after I graduated, I started talking to more people, realizing that isn't the case. But even then, at the beginning, I was still applying for all types of jobs. Like I would apply for biz dev jobs, I would apply for storyboarding, production, because I was like, I just want to be in the industry, and I knew my end goal was like I want to be a showrunner, and I want to go the writing route. So then that started to like narrow things down. But even at the beginning, I think it's such a hard industry to break into, and it took me quite some time. So like you get a sense of like desperation. You're just like, I will do anything. So like I was applying for like executive assistant jobs, applying for like office assistant, like any entry level job I would apply for. But I think if you're more vague, it's less helpful. You need to be like really specific about, what do you want to do? Where do you want to do it? Like what studios are the right fit for you? Because like I knew for me, like, Netflix or Disney were much more my style than like a Cartoon Network would be. Just because of my tastes and the types of shows that I like to watch and I like to write on. So it's like knowing those types of things. And then yeah, being really specific about the types of shows you want to work on, the type of people you want to work with. Of course, like everybody in the industry is nice, and I think like any show, you might have a good experience. But there's some things that would be like a much better fit for you than others, and so being like patient and knowing what you want.
Okay, I'm gonna be in third year next year. And that's when teachers kind of tell you, oh, you gotta choose that one path and start to hone it, right? And then I've also heard other people say that recruiters or industry people get confused if you're kind of applying to this, applying to that, applying like all different varieties, which is very understandable because sometimes you really don't know. Did you have experience or problems with trying to pursue many different paths, or was it kind of like maybe you spent a year trying different sorts and then you found some resources in one area and then you just went into that path? What was your experience like?
Yeah, I think that's 100% true. And like, I think if you're very vague, people don't know how to help you. People don't know where to guide you. Being specific really helps. Like, we get so many artists, and like now I say we like on the recruiting side for AIA, because now I've gone through so many different portfolios and reviews, and I've seen what kind of like a recruiter sees on a smaller scale. There's so many students who are just like, I love Viz Dev, or like I love art, or I talk to a lot of people who are just like, I want to work at animation, and that's how I was as well when I was in school and just graduated, because I just didn't know yet. I was still figuring it out. But it makes it really hard to know what to do with them and like where to put them, because we only have certain spots and we're trying to find the right puzzle piece. But if you're just like, I'm just a circle, you're like, I don't know where to put the circle, like I need somebody that fits into the spot. So yeah, I think choosing a path is really beneficial to you, and it helps direct you. And even if that path changes, that's totally okay. But you kind of have to go like full force in one direction, because if you're kind of like slowly moving in all directions, you're just not going to get as far as just like choosing one path and going and pursuing that. But yeah, I think once I decided like for sure I'm going like the PA route, or like PA to script coordinator to writing route, that helped focus my job search a lot more, and kind of like tell people like I'm looking specifically for these types of jobs. It helped me like not waste my time on applying to jobs that I actually didn't want, because I was like applying to jobs at like agencies, and then I would interview for them and I'm like, oh, I don't want this job. So yeah, focusing your energy is really important too.
That makes a lot of sense. So right now you're kind of focusing more on the production side, is that correct?
Yeah, so I wanted to start off in production because I wanted to learn as much as I could about the pipeline and really like just see from start to finish. Because as a writer, you really only in most shows get to see like the writing part, and then you just don't see anything until the show comes out like 3 years later, and you're like, oh, that's where my writing went. But I wanted to really see like how it gets made and what problems come up, and like how are people interpreting the script through boards and through design and animation, and like how do you need to write a script, and then also wanting to be a showrunner, like what decisions are needing to be made as a showrunner and like how do you make a show run smoothly. So to me, I wanted to start out in production to get all the information, and I've been lucky enough, like on Gentry, my first show, I was there from, when they were still wrapping up biz dev all the way through post. So I was able to see every single part of the pipeline and help out with it. And so then that has helped me move forward in my other jobs, to then hopefully, my hopeful next step is something more writing related or show running. Yeah.
What experiences helped you find work in production? Because I feel like in school, like in our college right now, you get all these art classes, maybe some writing, maybe some story classes, and then some industry guest people come in and they talk about I got in through production or I went that path and then got into production. But there's kind of no, oh, you take production major and then you go into it and go into production. Like, what experiences helped you find work in the production uh, part of the industry?
Yeah. I think production is one of the most competitive departments because it's one that like anyone can do in a sense. People and like you're competing with people who don't know what they want to do, people who want to go into writing, people who want to go into being an exec or want to go into art, as well as people who actually want to go into production. So like everyone kind of uses it as an entry level point, which is unfortunate. So part of it is like being genuinely interested in going into production will help you succeed. Because if you don't actually want to go into production or have any interest in it at all, then you're just going to be miserable. And also, like, you're doing a disservice to the show and yourself. So that's part of it. It takes a long time, it takes a lot of effort, takes a lot of networking. I think, like, being from the East Coast and also just being naturally more reserved and being like raised to not really like make noise or like stand out also like hurt a little bit, like being an introvert, because you in Hollywood you have to kind of like sell it yourself in a sense, or like advertise like why people should hire you, because it's like it's just so competitive. And then yeah, making these connections. Like I didn't know anybody, so slowly like building my network and community and like talking to people, and then like 2 years later, they would have like a position open up on their show, and I'd be like, oh, like finally, like like an opportunity would come up. But like making genuine connections because people can totally tell if you're just like using them for a job and stuff. Like actually make connections with people that you get along with, because yeah, most of my interviews that I got for production were all through like friends of friends or like connections, which were only built over like the couple of years before. Like I didn't, have a cousin or like, people that I knew before that. Let me see what else. I think having a strong application like resume and website is important. If they have a cover letter, being able to tell a good cover letter, and say things that are special to you and not generic, which is tricky to not just be like, I grew up watching animation or like I really love cartoons. Like that's everybody. But like what is special about you? Um, and yeah, trying to stand out and be special in a sense, but it's also some things are just like a culture fit because like you're working with these people so much, it has to be just like the right personality fit too, which sometimes you don't have control over.
What do you think were some of the most important things on your resume when you were applying into these kind of production roles?
I think one of it for sure was all the volunteering with organizations I did. So, Asians in animation, I basically treated that as my internship or like my job basically because I wasn't able to get an internship in school. Like I had applied and just never worked out because I don't think I knew how to play the game. Like I didn't know how to network with people. I didn't know how to make your resume look a certain way or like do the right things or say the right things. So then I was like, I need some experience because like recruiters and stuff like look at your resume, they look you in like 30 seconds and they can just tell based on like your resume if you're green or not or if you're ready. So yeah, getting more experience in any way. So that was volunteering with organizations was accessible. Anyone can do it. I also volunteered with like Rise Up Animation. I was just like put me anywhere and like really showing my effort and passion through that because they want to see proof that you are passionate. And so yeah, any way you can prove that on your resume. And then let's see. I think also doing like the screenwriting fellowships as well, like just like yeah, any way that you can prove that you can do it. And then like networking is also part of it because it shows like you're committed to meeting with people and like actually making connections with people and that you'd be a good fit with their team or with the industry and like showing that you have knowledge that way as well.
What kind of networking events do you like typically attend? And for example, you see this one person, what kind of questions do you ask them?
Yeah, my first few networking events, I didn't really know how to network. So I just went to like an open networking event, like the Creator Society did one, Asian Queens in Animation did one. It was just like a Zoom room full of people. And I quickly learned I do not really like that because it's just hard in a group, especially virtually, to like speak up and talk to people. So I would just kind of sit there quietly. I learned that I really prefer one-on-one meetings, so I would just go on LinkedIn and look up people that worked on shows that I liked or things that I had similar with them, like people who also worked at Disney, people who are also teachers, people who are also from the same school as me, like some sort of entry point, and I kind of like, you know, lightly internet stalk them and like looked on their LinkedIn, look like see if I think that we would get along. And then if it was so, then I would reach out to them and be like, hey, like would love to do a coffee chat. And then yeah, I would just ask them about their journey. And you hear like everyone has such a different story of how they got in. And then, just asking them about their experiences and, researching really well about like things to ask them and things that you can't just Google. So that it's like, specific to them because I don't want to waste their time either. Yeah, I think that's pretty much the way. Also, like, if you are also lost of where to find people, I would say like go to like channels and stuff and then follow up with those people if you like what they have to say. Because usually if people are doing panels or interviews or whatever, like it means they're usually open to talking because like they're talking at that moment. It's like if somebody doesn't want to talk or doesn't want to be found, you probably can't find them. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah. For contacting people on LinkedIn, do you actually like try to meet them in person, or is it more of like online? I ask you some questions, and then maybe they have the time to like text back.
yeah. Well, I started doing networking in like 2020 and 2021. So it was during like the height of COVID, so everything was virtual, and I was in Maryland at the time. So yeah, everything was virtual. And then when I moved out to LA, I still prefer to do things virtual. That's just my personal preference, especially when I'm meeting someone for the first time, like safety and all that stuff. And I think it's just more casual. It's less commitment. But then like after I meet with someone like a couple times or we form like or more of a relationship, then like yeah, I've met with people in person as well. But I think it just depends on your personal preference. Um, I I think some people do uh take more weight on like if you meet them personally, like they're like, oh, like that shows that they're like super committed. But it's kind of like your own personal comfort level. I just defer to it.
Yeah. And just to quickly circle back to what kind of questions to ask them, you said you would ask them about like their journey, so it's kind of very much an emphasis on their experience in the industry and how they got in. So you would be asking about, for example, I want to do this. What's your experience like, and how would you advise people do it now? Is that kind of your approach?
Yeah, that's usually a good like starting place that I would take. Because I think it's really interesting to hear like how people got there. Because like you can see on their LinkedIn like what they did, but everyone's how they got there is very like different, and you might not know exactly like they knew somebody or like a lot of people have very like convoluted like lucky things or like funny like series of coincidences that happen. So I find that really fascinating, and then it's kind of specific to each person, but I'll ask them about their experience on certain shows or like advice for specific things. Yeah, if they're like more writing focused, ask about writing things, production, that like,
Totally. Thank you so much for your advice on that, because I think I've tried kind of talking to people a bit. I'm definitely better than first year. First year was horrible, but second year, I'm starting to like have some questions about, oh, maybe I should have asked something different or approached it differently. So your advice is really helpful. Yeah.
it helps to like start small. Like I think starting with like peer, like other people who are your like level, so like other students, and then you kind of go to like recent grads, and then you kind of go to like people who just broke in. You kind of like work your way up. So like I didn't meet like writers or executives or showrunners right off the bat. Like that took me like 2 or 3 years to get comfortable of like, all right, now I know like kind of what to talk about. Of course, you can also talk about like what type of stuff people like to watch and make because like we all are creative. We all like watching stuff and making stuff. So like that's really interesting and asking also people what their goals are. Because it kind of like you never know. One like right now you're kind of like still trying to break in, but one day you might be in a position that you can help them. So you don't know.
Yeah. Last question. Do you have anything planned that is exciting that's going to happen soon, whether it's with AIA or something else?
Not necessarily. I've been just kind of like taking a little bit of a break since tea ended and like, my wedding. So I was like kind of taking like a relaxed summer for the last couple months and just focusing mostly on work. And then in the fall I want to try working on my novel that I've been working on since high school. Like I have, I've had a first draft for oh, 7+ years now, but I haven't done anything with it. So I want to like, try to edit it. And of course, like, my writing has improved since ninth grade when I started writing it. So yeah, that's one thing I want to do. I want to work on pitch decks to try to like pitch shows and hopefully move up. And yeah, that type of stuff, but nothing super concrete yet. Kind of just taking a little break right now.
Sounds like you already have very cool stuff planned, so that's super cool that you have a direction to go on. Thank you so much, Saira, for all your advice and sharing about AIA, Teammates Labs, and also working and breaking into the animation industry. I think you have a very unique perspective, and also you're with a lot of involvement with AIA and other volunteering opportunities that maybe a lot of people that we haven't really talked to who had this kind of experience. So thank you so much. And be sure to check out Tea Leaves Last and also AIA program. I will link those below somewhere. But yeah, thank you, Sarah. And thank you for watching.
Thank you, everyone.